Welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone who spent the first 14 years of his mortgage business climbing to the executive level of a national mortgage banking firm. Watched that company close during the financial crisis, and then made the intentional decision to start over with boots on the ground as a producing loan officer in the small California town where he grew up. Jayson Stebbins, welcome to the Lowdown.
Thank you so much. What a privilege to be here. Appreciate you.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, first, I just want to start with something. You're serving the community you grew up in. Like, what is that like? That's got to be super rewarding.
I love it. I know that my dad was a business owner in this town when I was growing up and was in high school. He owned a restaurant in our town. And so that creates a lot of real connectivity. When I see people, I go, I don't know if you remember, we had a restaurant. People who've been here a long time remember the restaurant. But it's a treat, man. It really is. I'm like, for my office where I'm sitting right now is, basically not even half a mile from the high school I went to. And we spent a lot of time in this downtown and doing sometimes not so teenagery things, but yeah, it's a real blessing, man. It's a real blessing. I love it.
That's great, man. And it sounds like service has been in the family, and that's fantastic. What kind of food was it at the restaurant, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, no, I don't. I love talking about it. It was called the Old Fashioned Parlor, and it was an ice cream parlor. It was a restaurant and an ice cream parlor, kind of like the old Farrell's or Leatherby's, if you've ever been to one of those from the old days. We made our own ice cream, had a full soda fountain, ice creams, plus sandwiches, hamburgers, soups. It was a pretty sweet gig. And I worked there from the time I was 13 till I was 19.
Man, I don't know if I could have handled that growing up. I probably would have been 400 pounds. Either that, or I would have just like hated ice cream altogether and just been like totally over it by the time I was a teenager, and then said like, on a different path. But anyway, let's dive into the mortgage stuff because that's what the people came for. So you went from being a CEO elect at a national mortgage banking firm to starting over as a loan officer in your hometown when that company closed back in 2008. What did that transition feel like, and what made you choose to stay in the industry rather than just walk away and go do something else?
Well, by the time the mortgage meltdown happened and we lost that company, I was already almost 15 years in the industry, and I love it. It was in my bones, and my first job was coming right out of, I did some missionary service, and then I came right home and went right to work at a facilities department at a mortgage banking company, and worked my way from mailroom to boardroom basically in 14 years. So I loved the industry. I loved the opportunity of it. I talk about that all the time, about what a blessing this industry is if you want to make a good living with flexibility. It's such a great industry for that. So it was already kind of in my bones. And then we were a retail wholesale mortgage bank, privately owned. And so we already had some exposure to retail at the time, a lot of net branch retail. And so I dabbled in doing some loans here and there for friends and family. But yeah, it was just that we wanted to serve the community. We felt like it was underserved with non-bank retail. And so we decided to take a run and have confidence in our ability to build a business from scratch when it came to straight originating.
Yeah. And what I love about kind of your background is you mailroom to boardroom, right? Like you've done it all, and you've kind of been a part of the different parts of the process. And so front end, back end. And I know just when we talked before, you sort of admitted that the manufacturing side of it doesn't really excite you a bunch. But how has building a career around the parts of this job that you love, rather than just trying to be great at everything, actually shaped the way your business runs today?
Well, I mean, I think even in 33 years of mortgage banking, I've worked at two companies. So I'm not the kind of guy who moves. I'm pretty loyal. And even in the first organization where I worked, I was the production guy. I was the executive vice president over national production before I got the CEO title. And it was, so that's always been where my heart is with the sales force and with the crew that's out on the ground. And so getting a loan through the system is probably the least sexy of our part of our business, but certainly the front end of building relationships and meeting clients, the puzzle that we put together for every loan, and the families that we help and bless at the end of the transaction, and how it's like the road to their potential wealth building, and really just helping these families. Those parts are key to me, because my personality is one of connection and service and relationships. And so being a loan officer, a producing loan officer, just it came so natural, because really all you're trying to do is be of service and to help people, make friends, build relationships. And so I love the front end, I love the back end, the middle, not as much, but I've learned a lot being a loan officer for this many years.
Yeah, and just listening to you talk about it and the way you continuously kind of bring up serving others and the community, it's not surprising to know that, along the way, your business has really kind of been 50-50 purchase and refi, right? And which is kind of against the grain when you think about the market the last several years, where it's been, most people, conventional wisdom would say, hey, it's just a purchase heavy market. Like, how are you doing any refinances? But walk me through how your business looks that way, because it's really unique in a time where we're seeing, where refinances aren't, being talked about much at all. But you're somehow finding a way to get those referrals and serve those clients also.
Well, I think for me, and it's a fascinating statistic. And before our call, I was looking at my year to date, and literally my year to date from a unit standpoint is 50-50 year to date. So it's not a flash in the pan stat. It's a trend for my career. And I think because my circles of influence have been so important to my ability to originate. Where I have influence has created opportunities to know and to like and to trust me. And so I get refis in non-refi times. I get the we're getting divorce refis, and I need to buy out my brother refi, and we've got we're going to consolidate a bunch of mortgages into one mortgage refinances. And part of that is being in the community, right? As you work and serve in your community too, you meet the business owners and the self-employed people and the people who know how to leverage their assets to generate more opportunities. So, hey, Jayson, I want to expand my business. I'm going to take an equity line out or cash out refi on my house, and I'm going to go put it into the business. So it's created an opportunity, I think, to have a very diverse type of business, because I'm so well known in the community, and also able to create trust, so people will come to me even with their more unique mortgage scenarios.
Yeah. Have you done a lot of loans for like high school buddies? Like, I'm just curious, is this the kind of town that people grow up in and don't want to leave?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say, and it's not always in California, it's as they move there along. Right. I think the more exciting part is when you do a loan for your buddy's kids.
Right. Yeah.
That's when it gets pretty fun.
Yeah, that's what I'm like envisioning in my head, is just like this progression of family and generational help that you're providing. So I think it's awesome, man. But there's another side to you that we haven't even talked about, which is that you're involved in the coaching side of things. You're, with Guild Mortgage, you're in the Elevate program. You're helping originators kind of build their own, legacy and business for the future. And something you mentioned about coaching is accountability. You said accountability in coaching is not just useful, but it can actually be fun. And most people associate accountability with pressure. So what has to be true about a person or a coaching relationship for accountability to flip from feeling like a burden to feeling more like something to look forward to?
Well, I think it's the moments of success. It's the moments where you win. And you win because you stepped outside your comfort zone, or you find a different way to define what success looks like. I think accountability is it's an interesting word, but I think it also sometimes is overused to the point that it has a negative connotation. I mean, we want people to succeed, and as a coach, our job is not to really counsel or even consult. It's really to help somebody find the answer themselves through a series of really well-asked questions and well-assigned field work, right? So I think in a lot of ways, it becomes fun when you realize that you can win in the areas of your business that you love and that you like to do, and leaning into those, and then just realizing that you're being directed kind of toward a business that you enjoy, and then it can become fun. I think there's a heaviness sometimes that people associate with coaching, and it doesn't have to be that way. Coaching can be a really light and energetic and fun a way to move your business forward. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a heavy, let penalty based kind of an environment, right? It can be something really special.
Yeah, I think a lot of people stay out of coaching because they're afraid of just the vulnerability of it, right? To be exposed and to have someone know everything about what their day-to-day is like and to say, hey, you're doing this wrong. And then, to correct course. I almost think of it like why someone might not want to go into therapy or counseling, right? Is they're afraid the therapist will say, well, it's all your fault and start pointing fingers. But to your point, I think the best coaching relationships are really, it's like a teamwork makes the dream work sort of scenario where the coach is the guide. They know, they've been through it. They know how to get someone from where they are to where they want to go. And then you mentioned, asking really well thought out questions. And so I was just curious, like when you're developing a coaching style or how you're going to work with someone, like how much intentionality and thought is put into that even before you're talking with the loan officer or the person being coached?
Well, I think a good coach is a prepared coach. So I think there is intentional, in our program at Guild, it's usually 5 students to a coach. And so you have a group setting like that where it's intimate, but you're still dealing with multiple personalities. And a lot of times, the fun is to ask these, second level questions. You mentioned, sometimes the reaction is, hey, you're doing something wrong, or I would do it different. That's not coaching. That's consulting or counseling, right? That's dictating terms and saying that's, what's even better is when you can get the student to be able to say, oh, I'm doing that wrong. And they get there because you ask a question about, well, tell me what the outcome is that you're going for, or if you were to do it this way, what would happen? Or if you were to stop doing it, what would that look like? And sometimes even in our coaching groups to say, all right, you've heard, Connor's issue and experience. What would any of you ask Connor if you were his coach? And just creating an environment where you get some collaboration and where the student kind of can open their eyes through your just gentle direction and find out questions. And usually, same with our clients as loan officers, 1 or 2 more questions every application will generally mean that you're going to be better off and be able to serve them better the more you know. And, I think even as loan officers, we can be a little abrupt and be like, what's your name? What's your social? What's your birthday? What's your job? How long you been there? We do the application, but we don't ask the second level question that can really help us get into relationship and maybe find out and diagnose a problem that we wouldn't have seen until later.
Yeah. So this is a show for, the evolving originator. Loan officers are listening to this, most of them trying to figure out how to grow. As someone who has been a coach and is coaching coaches and, has helped many originators along the way, what do you see as like the first or most common mistake that someone who's trying to grow is making that's typically holding them back from having, more than just average amount of success in this business?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. I mean, there's a lot we could talk about around that question, but the first and foremost thing is, you have to find a way to prospect all the time. You have to figure out how can I, even when I'm all of a sudden have 3-4 loans for the first time, I have to be able to prospect all the time. And I have to figure out how to do it because our beginners, unfortunately, will often get those 1 or 2 escrows and then they just cling to them, right? They crush them with their time and they fill the space on the calendar with 1 or 2 loans, as opposed to being able to really aggressively time block, really aggressively honor their time. And remember that this is a real job. It's a full-time gig, which means you have to do all the parts of it all the time. And so for me, one of the things that really helped me was recognizing that I'm going to be a better loan officer and a better prospector. And my job is to basically make it rain, to bring the leads, to bring the deals. I'm going to be a better loan officer when I realize what do I love to do and then lean into that 100%. right? So sometimes loan officers make the mistake of, I have 17 different tactical things I've heard and learned about, even on this call, for example. I'm going to hear 4 or 5 things. I'm going to try and do all of them at once. No, find the one that resonates with you and then go hard on that one thing and win that thing. One of my successes with realtors has been, it's not an uncommon strategy in our industry, is the update calls weekly, calling agents on the purchases, the buyer's agent and the listing agent. I had a hard time blocking, and I said, I'm just going to do that one thing perfectly for a month. And now I never don't do it. And then it allowed me to say, hey, Jayson, look, you won that thing. You can do it. Now pick the next thing that you're going to do for sure, and just slowly build your prospecting life and the construct of it, but give yourself the win and the energy from the win, and then go find the next place. But I love the idea of leaning into the things that you love to do. If you're a great educator, go be in front of as many people as you can. If you're a great technician, then get aggressive with learning and teaching product, so it's just find the thing that you love and just lean hard into it.
Yeah. And I love your call out about taking the time to get really good at it, one thing at a time, because there are so many things that a loan officer needs to do or has, or just there's so many steps, right? And it can be very tempting to try to do it all at once. And that just is a road to mediocrity. So I love the call out about just staying really focused. So something that you have, I guess gotten focused on, or that's been a big part of, your business, is emceeing nonprofit organization galas and volunteering at chamber networking lunches. Clearly the theme is you're very involved locally and in the community. And now you're heading into your 13th straight year with an organization. You were named Man of the Year last year by the Chamber of Commerce. How did you figure out that this approach to business development would work? Did you even think about it as an approach to business development when you got started? And what does the first year of doing something like that really look like? Like, how does somebody get started?
Yeah, well, I think like most everything that we do that we end up doing well, it starts with some experimenting. But from when we opened our doors as a retail mortgage branch in 2008 in our little town here in Morgan Hill, Gilroy, California, our first and foremost thing was we need clients, we need influential clients, we need people who know that we're here. And so we want to be where they are. And so both the realtors and the business owners. And so we joined the chambers immediately in both towns. We became ambassadors and participants and volunteers, and we went on committees, and we went through leadership programs that are sponsored by the cities. We wanted to be where the realtors and the people were. And that included, being in the real estate organizations and going to their tour meetings and just sponsoring and just all in all being visible and present and serving. Being of service. And so that concept of being of service started me on this journey that I'm on now, where last year I emceed 17 nonprofit events. And this was stuff that I do as a give back. I don't charge for it. I love doing it. And so it started very small with being in the chamber and being asked to help host a luncheon one day because they needed somebody to kind of roll the agenda. That went well. They asked me back. Then one of the nonprofits that's local here was about to start there and do their first big gala event. So they asked me if I would be willing to help them with their first one. I did their first one. Now this year will be our 13th year in a row together. But when you start getting into that space, there's other nonprofits in the room. And so really what it's created for me was an opportunity to say, look, if you're a local nonprofit and you need my help, it is free. I will come. I will help you raise money. I will be on stage. I will entertain the group. I will do everything I can. And I don't want you to charge me for it. I want that money to stay with your nonprofit. Just throw Guild in there as a sponsor and know that we're here to serve. And it's created some real opportunity. And now I'm in the room with 300 people, helping them build their business. These are 300 influential, donor-based community advocates. And your circle grows. And I've turned down gigs that are outside of my footprint as a loan officer because I don't have an emotional connection to what they do. But the ones that are local here for, I help organizations that deal with childhood cancer, that deal with human trafficking and divorce and domestic violence and all kinds of things, and food pantries and all these things, all to say that I'm here in my community, I'm visible, and I want to give back. And it's turned into a really, really big part of who I am. And my business, of course, has benefited from it with the visibility and the record and the record of service, right? So the Man of the Year was a beautiful get. I did not expect it. It was lovely, but it really comes down to just being visible and part of the community.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so you've also, I guess, met so many people through this that kind of got a fun thing going with your kids where you owe them $1 if you don't run into someone out and about.
Yeah, even my best friend, he likes to tease, but my kids love it. They know if we go to Costco, if we go out to dinner, that there's going to be somebody that knows dad. And if there isn't, then I have to pay them money. That's how confident I was in making the deal, that we would probably see somebody that I know. But also, when you think about it creates an environment with my kids now where I don't have to talk to them about being a community servant and what it means. They see it live. They see me and they come to the chamber mixers with me, and they'll come to the events, and I'll sponsor, movie night in the park, and they'll come and be a part of that with me. So they've grown up with it. We're on our 7th year of a diapers and wipes drive that we do for one of our charities. That's a family sponsored thing. And, so this is a thing we do as a family, right? To try and be of service to the community. And so that's a legacy that's important to me, is that they see me serving others who are less fortunate than us. And hopefully that carries down into them as they become adults.
Yeah. And I think there's a cool business side of this too, where, as a coach, you're also getting coached. And you had a coach once tell you, actually it's not 40 calls that you need to make, it's 40 handshakes. And I love that they recognized that there was maybe a different way to have you prospect. It's because it isn't the same for everyone, right? And sometimes the metric can be the same, but what we're measuring needs to be different. And so what changed about your business when you stopped, focusing on the calls and started really focusing on just the handshakes and being out there in the community?
Well, I think what your point is so great. And that is that we all know what we're supposed to be doing. A lot of times though, for me, I have call reluctance, just like any other loan officer. The phone weighs a little heavy to me when it comes time to actually pick up and call realtors or introduce myself. I don't want to bother people. I don't want them to think poorly of me, or whatever our excuses are and the narratives that we build in our own head most of the time, But yeah, it's just that, like you said, for me, calling 40 realtors on a Monday was not my highest and best use. It was not the way I was going to prospect and win relationships. For me, I needed to be in front of people. It's where I am the best and where I can be the most influential and where I can build the most confidence. So being, I am one of the tour captains now in our Morgan Hill tour meeting every other week. So I'm in front of 100 realtors every other week. We do the tour sheets for them as a service. So our logo shows up. There's just things that we can do. So it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, where as an originator, you need to figure out, what do I love to do? Where am I really the best me? And then find out, if somebody loves to read, start a book club. If you love to cook, start having little mini cooking lessons at your house with the realtors, stuff that you already love to do, and you can create a little community around that. For me, I've never been afraid to get on stage. I have a little bit of an acting background. It's easy for me to be in front of people. I'm quick on the microphone, and it's turned into an opportunity to be of service, not just at Guild, where I help at Guild MC things as well, but in my community. And it's just one of the best give backs you can do. It's just an awesome, awesome opportunity. So find the thing that helps you to prospect in a way that makes you happy, and you'll have a much better run as a business person.
Absolutely, man. That's phenomenal advice. You and I have something in common. We both have an acting background.
Yeah.
Anything I would have seen?
Well, you can stream my only independent film on Amazon, but I doubt that you have seen it.
All good. All good. Yeah. You've probably seen the back of my head in an optometry commercial from the early 2000s. And that's probably about my only credit. Oh, and a Houston Texans commercial once upon a time. But Jayson, I've thrown a lot of questions at you, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak your mind. If there's anything specific that we haven't talked about that you'd like to, share with the audience before we wrap up.
Well, it's an honor to be here, and I think for me, as somebody who's participated as a coaching student and as a coach, my commentary is really to our industry as a whole, that find a coach and get coached. I feel like it's changed my business when I finally decided to be coached, and we don't have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars for it. You can find environments that will help you be accountable and open your eyes to new ways to go. But I feel like coaching is a huge part of what we do, and I'm a big advocate for it. So find an accountability partner, find a coach, and you should level your business up, because it'll help you see things through different eyes and guide you to where you need to get.
Awesome, man. Well, Jayson, I appreciate you being on the lowdown. Thanks for joining the show, sharing your story, and just wisdom. It's really awesome to hear how you're approaching your business and the things that you've done that maybe don't fit into necessarily the traditional box, but it's working for you. And I think at the end of the day, that's really the lesson: is do the things that you love and be a part of the communities that you'll thrive in, and the business will follow. Wish you nothing but the best in the future, man. Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much.